This is wild. Kevin Stefanski under major fire, under major heat for apparently, allegedly lying about Cleveland Brown players. Now, we all know the sabotage has been in. We had owner Jimmy Haslam step in. He's getting rid of linemen who he feels are a part of the sabotage. That's why you just seen somebody get removed. He's bringing in new guy, all types of stuff.
You won't believe this actually happened. Deion Sanders didn't just raise an eyebrow, he blew the roof off after Kevin Stefanski's decisions started looking like a clinic in self-sabotage. One moment it was football, the next it turned into a primetime meltdown packed with drama. Was it tough love, questionable coaching, or something much deeper? Buckle up, because when Coach Prime senses nonsense around Shedeur, he doesn't whisper, he detonates. And the fallout? Absolutely wild. The internet is losing its mind.
I'm going to say it again. Kevin Stefanski must be fired. I'm going to say it again and again and again. Kevin Stefanski did not want Shedeur Sanders, didn't even want him in the 5th round. Kevin Stefanski has done everything in his power to keep Shedeur Sanders from succeeding in Cleveland as a 5th round pick against all odds. Even yanking Shedeur again.
And Cleveland woke up to a locker room that no longer felt like a locker room, it felt like a courtroom. Not the quiet, orderly kind with suits and notepads, but the loud kind where tension hangs in the air and someone's about to slam their hand on the table asking why nobody thought this through.
Deion said they lied on Shedeur. Check it out. Deion Sanders for the first time publicly gives his candid thoughts on Shedeur sliding to the 5th round. He thinks people didn't want to see him at the next level, so they took that out on Shedeur.
I know there's a lot of rumors about the next level, and I can't see that. Yeah, I can't see the next level, and I think a couple people who may have taken shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go to that, and that's where the shots came from. All you got to do is just sit back and listen.
Now, Deion would elaborate more on this by saying some people put out false reports about Shedeur Sanders.
Because somewhere between film sessions and press conferences, the Browns managed to irritate the one man in football who treats disrespect like a personal hobby. Deion Sanders had seen enough, and when Coach Prime reaches that point, history shows things get very uncomfortable for whoever pushed him there.
Browns need to fire Kevin Stefanski as he's clearly sabotaging Shedeur Sanders. In case you missed it, the Browns took Shedeur Sanders off the field for the game-tying 2-point conversion to run one of the most idiotic plays you'll ever see against the Titans to lose the game. And that was all after Shedeur threw for 364 yards, had a total of 4 touchdowns, but yeah, let's take him off the field for the biggest play of the game. And the crazy thing is, this wasn't even the first time it happened. Remember when the Browns were playing the Raiders, Shedeur Sanders dropped that dime to Isaiah.
It started quietly, which somehow made it worse. Shedeur Sanders took the field for his second NFL start against San Francisco, and the scoreboard wasn't kind. The loss looked ugly if you only glanced at the numbers, but football fans know a box score never tells the full story.
He had on headphones. Shedeur, anybody know my son, I understand he's a professional. Like, he's going to go into a meeting with headphones on. Like, y'all, come on.
Now that this clip is going viral, there are some people who are saying, of course Deion's going to say that. That's his son. What else would he say? And there are other people that are saying, like, hey, this is a man, Shedeur Sanders, who's had a camera in his face since he was a kid, and he stepped up at every level. So why would he start being disrespectful, not prepared at the NFL?
The real damage wasn't happening on the turf, it was happening behind closed doors, in decisions that felt less like player development and more like an elaborate science experiment called What Happens If We Do Everything Backward and Hope Nobody Notices. Then came the detail that made fans freeze mid-nacho bite. The head coach openly admitted Shedeur went into his NFL debut without a single first-team practice rep, zero, none, not one meaningful rehearsal with the receivers he was supposed to lead on Sundays. No timing, no chemistry, no sense of how the offense actually breathes, just vibes, prayers, and a helmet. Somewhere in the football universe, a clipboard burst into flames. Analysts dropped all politeness. Former players reached for language usually reserved for malpractice lawsuits, and social media became a digital group chat asking the same question in different fonts. How does a team draft a quarterback it claims is the future and then treat preparation like an optional side quest? Through it all, Deion Sanders was watching every snap, every decision. every carefully worded press conference that explained nothing while sounding very confident and patience, which Deion has but only in limited supply, quietly packed its bags and left the building. Whether that dinner ever happened almost doesn't matter, because refusing to engage speaks louder than arguing.
Fire Kevin Stefanski or trade Shedeur Sanders. The Cleveland Brown brass, especially the GM Andrew Berry, must make a decision at the end of this year. Either they fire their head coach Kevin Stefanski or trade Shedeur Sanders. And also we're going to talk about the ex-former NFL players. Boy, they didn't hold back when it came to Shedeur Sanders.
It says everything without saying anything, a skill Deion mastered long before social media discovered subtweets. Then came the Raiders game. Shedeur steps in, throws for over 200 yards, leads a convincing win, and Browns fans feel a rare emotion called optimism. The stadium buzzes, hope Cleveland's dangerous old friend starts stretching its legs again. But the moment that usually belongs to the quarterback lands elsewhere, and suddenly the internet catches fire like someone dropped a match into gasoline. The timing is surgical. That post didn't exist in isolation, it sits among a string of moments that feel too consistent to ignore. Decisions keeping Shedeur on the shortest leash, play calls removing him from critical moments, creative formations that somehow always leave the quarterback out when it matters most. At some point, coincidence runs out of gas. Then came the revelation that chilled everything. The head coach admitted he didn't really know Deion Sanders. No relationship, no regular communication, just professional distance and vibes. Which might sound normal until you remember Deion Sanders is more than a parent in the stands, he's a walking media earthquake, microphone always within reach. Ignoring that reality isn't a strategy. It's a gamble.
Potential tying two-point conversion, going with the Wildcat. It was a disaster. After Shedeur had shown again and again, he's the answer in the red zone for the Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders just played by far his best game as a pro. He just threw for 364 yards and 3 touchdowns and led the Browns in rushing and scored a rushing touchdown from 7.
And it raises the uncomfortable question nobody wanted to ask out loud. Was Shedeur ever truly part of the long-term plan, or was he drafted into a situation where the development plan was more theoretical than real? The evidence piled up like unpaid parking tickets. His first pass to the primary receiver didn't happen in practice, didn't happen during camp, it happened live, against a real NFL defense, cameras rolling, defenders closing in. That's not how chemistry is built, that's how trust issues are born. Yet the most impressive part wasn't the chaos, it was Shedeur himself. When reporters tried to bait him into controversy, he stayed calm, defended the process, showed respect, and looked like the adult in the room, which only made everything else look worse by comparison. That restraint didn't cool the situation, it intensified it, because Deion Sanders knows his son won't swing publicly, meaning if anyone protects the narrative, it's him. And hovering over all of it like an unpaid credit card bill? The Deshaun Watson contract, a fully guaranteed deal eating the salary cap like an all-you-can-eat buffet, $46 million this season for 0 snaps.
Guys has been seeing all of the different headlines, all of the different stories coming out about the Cleveland Browns, but no bigger story means more than what we finna talk about today, and that is Kevin Stefanski keeping his job. We've seen coaches across the league be fired throughout the season, and them pretty much being the worst team in all of the NFL. It's clear as day that they tanking. Kevin Stefanski has lost all ability to call plays offensively. Why is he still the coach?
A financial anchor so heavy it drags the entire roster underwater. The offensive line struggles, the receiving room is thin, and the margin for error is non-existent. Former quarterbacks pointed out the obvious: this isn't a quarterback-friendly situation. It doesn't matter who's under center, the structure is broken. Which makes the handling of Shedeur even more baffling. If everything around him is fragile, why not overinvest in preparation? Why not make development the one thing you control, unless development was never the priority? Through it all, Shedeur kept showing flashes: a deep touchdown under pressure that made fans sit up, a final drive hinting at composure you can't teach. Talent never disappeared, confidence never cracked, the kid stood calm in the storm while everything around him spun. Now comes week 14, the Titans. A full week with the starters, real preparation, the actual playbook. For the first time, Shedeur won't be thrown into chaos without a map. It's supposed to feel like progress, except it arrives wrapped in tension thick enough to cut with a cleat. Because the damage isn't to his ability, it's to trust. Trust between a father and a franchise, between expectations and reality, between what Cleveland promised itself and what it actually delivered. And Deion Sanders remains quiet, which might be the loudest thing of all.
Reported by ESPN Cleveland and Rappaport that the Cleveland Browns have not made a decision on Kevin Stefanski's status as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns for next year. Listen to what they say. ESPN Cleveland, no final decision has been made on head coach Kevin Stefanski's future with the Cleveland Browns. If Jimmy Haslam decides to move on.
Because when Deion Sanders decides to speak fully, not in hints or scripture-adjacent captions, it won't be subtle. It will dominate every sports show, every timeline, every debate desk, hunting for a villain of the week. Cleveland knows it. The front office feels it. The coaching staff hears the footsteps. The franchise stands in that awkward pause just before the storm, hoping it can still change direction. This story stopped being about wins and losses a while ago. It's about respect, about process, about whether a franchise scarred by decades of quarterback missteps has actually learned anything. Shedeur Sanders stands at the center, calm, composed, refusing to fold, while his father circles, ensuring the world understands breaking his son isn't on the menu. Kevin Stefanski is stuck in the middle, coaching football while ignoring the pressure building behind him, a pressure history suggests doesn't disappear. It either gets addressed, or it explodes. The next game will tell part of the story. The next press conference will reveal more. But the real moment everyone's waiting for hasn't happened yet, the moment Deion Sanders decides that silence has done its job. And when that moment comes, Cleveland won't just be talking football, it will be talking about the day Coach Prime decided enough was enough, reminding everyone that some families don't play when it comes to their own. The organization acts like this is just another quarterback situation, another developmental hiccup, another week-to-week storyline, but this isn't that kind of problem.
How much more evidence do y'all need to see clear as day Kevin Stefanski hates Shedeur? To see clear as day that Kevin Stefanski is trying to sabotage Shedeur? Clear as day that Kevin Stefanski will sacrifice the integrity of the game. He will sacrifice wins because he hates Shedeur Sanders so much. What sense does it make that your rookie quarterback has 350 passing yards? He has 4 touchdowns, 3 passing, 1 rushing.
This is the kind of pressure that sits in the background, arms crossed, tapping its foot, waiting for the smallest excuse to make front-page news. Deion Sanders doesn't operate on hope, he operates on leverage. Right now, that leverage is enormous. Every questionable snap, every conservative play call, every time Shedeur is pulled from the field for some experimental nonsense adds another brick to a wall already towering over the Browns season. And the scariest part for Cleveland? Deion hasn't raised his voice yet. No media tour, no direct callouts, he's letting the pattern speak for him. Fans can feel it, the conversation has shifted. It's no longer about whether Shedeur is ready, it's about whether the Browns are. People aren't asking if the rookie can handle pressure anymore, they're asking why the coaching staff keeps manufacturing it. There's a difference between challenging a young quarterback and daring him to fail to prove a point. One builds confidence, the other builds resentment. And resentment leaks into everything: body language, play selection, distribution of opportunities, and the sudden disappearance of creativity just as the quarterback starts finding rhythm. Success gets redirected away from the person who earned it. Cleveland may insist none of this is intentional, but intention doesn't matter when perception becomes reality.
Well, then the very next play, they took Shedeur Sanders off the field so they can run Wildcat, which Quinshon Judkins did score on the play, but why are they taking him off the field? Not only did they do that once that game, they did it twice. They ran Wildcat again with Quinshon Judkins, who got in for a touchdown. Let me ask you, do you ever remember the Browns running Wildcat and taking Dillon Gabriel off the field when he was starting those 6 weeks? And we all know the drafting of Shedeur Sanders was clearly an owner's pick, while Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, they wanted Dillon Gabriel. That was their guy. And that's why Shedeur, ever since arriving to Cleveland, had to work his way up from QB4 to now the starter of the team.
Meanwhile, Shedeur keeps doing the most inconvenient thing for a sabotage narrative. He stays composed. He answers questions carefully, he plays the game, and he moves on. No sulking, no exaggerated gestures, no eye rolling, just discipline at a stage where it's rare, and exactly why his father is watching so closely. Deion knows how fragile that composure can be in the wrong environment, and the Browns' environment has never been known for patience. This is a franchise that chews through quarterbacks like a revolving door powered by bad decisions, a cautionary tale repeated over decades. Every time Cleveland swears this time is different, the football gods quietly pull up a chair. Layer that on top of a salary cap situation designed to warn future generations, a massive contract sitting unused, draining resources, shrinking flexibility, and forcing the rest of the roster to operate on bargain bin margins. When things go wrong in that setup, someone always becomes the lightning rod. Right now, that someone looks dangerously close to being the rookie quarterback who didn't ask for any of this, which is why the next stretch of games is so critical.
We all know that Stefanski was willing to sabotage the season as long as he can keep Gabriel the starter. But what he just did today, he did it right in front of our faces. You took Shedeur Sanders out of the game after 4 touchdowns and almost a game-tying drive after he scored 6 points. You took him out of the game-tying 2-point conversion to run an option play that hasn't worked all game long. And I thought to myself, maybe he didn't call that play. Maybe he's not calling plays. He confirmed he's calling every single play. So this just comes back down to he has the same representation as Dillon Gabriel. He did not want Shedeur to shine and win that game.
Because if Shedeur finally gets a fair week of preparation and the offense suddenly looks functional, uncomfortable questions will start flying, questions nobody in that building wants to answer. Why didn't this happen earlier? Were priorities misplaced? Were certain struggles avoidable all along? And if things don't improve, the noise grows anyway, flipping the narrative from mishandling to outright mismanagement. Either way, the spotlight won't leave. Deion Sanders understands this better than anyone. He's played the game, coached the game, sold the game, and mastered controlling the conversation around it. He knows when to wait and when to strike, and right now, he's waiting, letting Cleveland show its hand in full view of everyone watching. The irony is this didn't have to be adversarial. A few different early decisions could have changed the tone, a little transparency, a little collaboration, a little acknowledgement that developing a young quarterback takes more than tossing him the keys during rush hour and hoping for the best. Instead, the Browns chose distance. And distance creates stories. Stories attract attention. Attention brings pressure. And pressure is the one thing this franchise has never handled well. Meanwhile, football is still being played. Games are still scheduled. Playbooks are still being installed.
Everybody was calling for Stefanski's job. I wanted to talk about it on a few levels. One, when there's a white person over you just doing everything to stop your success. It was really bothering me.
It's obvious.
And is it obvious
you think that's what's happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if it were just this game in isolation, I would say that they're just trying to lose and they're sticking to the tanking program.
Wow.
With how the draft went, with their season and how it went, with them picking the Dillon kid and trying to put all the faith in him, just their behavior throughout the season says that this is a sabotage.
We just don't want him to.
But the emotional center of this situation has drifted far beyond X's and O's. This is about control, about respect, about who gets to define the narrative when things don't go according to plan. Shedeur Sanders is earning his place the hard way, one snap at a time, refusing to let chaos dictate his identity. Deion Sanders is making sure the world knows that effort won't be wasted or quietly undermined. Meanwhile, Kevin Stefanski is coaching under a microscope, perhaps unaware of just how much pressure he's stepped into. Cleveland can still change how this story ends, that's what makes it so tense. The door isn't closed, but it's no longer wide open. It hangs there, creaking, waiting for someone to decide whether to walk through it or slam it shut. Because once Coach Prime decides the lesson needs to be taught publicly, there's no walking it back. The message will be loud, unavoidable, and relentless, leaving Cleveland to explain how it turned a promising situation into another chapter of what could have been. The clock is ticking not just on the season, but on trust. And in this league, once trust is gone, no amount of carefully scripted answers can bring it back.